few comments about the trade, then I'll get to Garrett Crochet and then throw it out for questions. We're thrilled to add a player of AJ Pollock's caliber to this roster. We view him as making us better offensively as well as defensively, and providing us with some important flexibility as we go through this season, as well as some depth for whatever valleys may lie ahead for us. Obviously, quality professional hitter. We all know what he's capable of doing defensively. We've already had a handful of conversations with Tony and with the coaches about how we're going to mix them in, as well as continue to obviously get Eloy and Luis Robert and Sheets and Vaughn their opportunities as well. So excited by the addition, thinks it makes us better, and sad to see Craig go, but know that he's got a great opportunity for him with a very, very good Dodger team, and very likely in a role that he's obviously excelled in for the vast majority of his career. For any questions on Crochet, the preliminary MRI reading is not great. There's appears to be some damage to the ligament, which very likely will require Tommy John surgery. That said, this is again preliminary, and he is going to seek out a second opinion here in the coming days. But being above board with everything along these lines, the prognosis at this time is not great. If you want to take the glass half full side of things, at least from a timing standpoint with regards to any Tommy John surgery, using the very generic approximate 11 to 13 month recovery for a reliever, we should have him back for the 2023 season if that is the case. Questions?
You talked about the fit with Pollock.
Yeah.
How does that, especially with Tony having talked about not overusing Yasmani early on and wanting to keep his bat in the lineup at DH, so how does that work with the younger guys too then, like Vaughn when he's healthy and Sheets and that sort of thing?
I mean, if we are blessed with perfect health throughout this season, they'll be fantastic, because we'll be in a position where arguably we have too many players deserving of at-bats on a championship caliber club. I look forward to embracing that potential issue. If in reality we have the occasional setback, or a guy needs to be put in the DH spot to rest his legs or give him a couple of days to recover from the grind of the season, we have the flexibility positionally that guys can move around the diamond, and confident that Tony and his staff will put him in the best position to succeed.
Is this as much about, I mean, obviously it helps you in right, but as much about overall roster depth, building kind of a championship depth roster?
It's very much about roster depth. Obviously, AJ has the ability to help us in right field, we believe, but he's made his career in left and center as well. So it gives us some depth, some alternative options, some ability to take guys off their feet, as well as solidify us again, both offensively and defensively. I know on paper, when you enter this offseason, you talk about potential fits in the outfield, people probably tend to gravitate more towards left-handed hitters, given the way our lineup is constructed. Obviously, AJ's been a fantastic hitter over the course of his career against both lefties and righties. I believe putting up a OPS over 900 last year against righties and over 800 for his career. So, although not left-handed, we think he makes the lineup tougher against both lefties and righties. Yes, James.
I just want to talk about New Day for a bit. Probably when you're making this deal, you were anticipating losing one reliever, not two.
Yeah.
Does this change your outlook or your feeling of need with the bullpen?
Look, obviously the timing's not great. We're on the phone with Andrew last night in the midst of our game, while also getting text messages from James Kruk dealing with Garrett. So not great timing on that, but we do think we have quality bullpen options in-house to fill those innings. Ryan Burr and Matt Foster both look real good this spring. We've been impressed with what Crick has brought to the table, and both of the young lefties in Souza and Severino have shown the potential ability to help a big league club. So we've got options. We obviously have Joe Kelly coming back at some point as well, which will help deepen the back end of our pen and the options there. So there's never a good time to lose any pitching depth, regardless of how well situated you are, but we feel we've got quality options to fill those voids.
I can anticipate this question is probably way too early, but
Excellent.
this season was about Garrett kind of moving up a little bit and building an innings base. Does this kind of restart it?
Too soon. Too soon. Look, he's.
It's a natural point of curiosity.
It's a natural. It certainly would be difficult for me to have a positive spin on him missing the season in terms of his development. The only real positive, again, is the timing puts him in line to, again, be able to help us in 2023. As for what role and the recovery path and the development path, we'll take a bit here, let the kid recover from whatever lies ahead, and then we'll chart a path forward.
He just felt it on that one pitch. Is that when it?
In talking to him, it sounds like the pitch before he felt a little something, but it sort of went away. So then he threw the next pitch and felt a sharp pain again, and obviously wisely shut it down at that point.
How important is it to have two left-handers in it?
Again, similar to the Pollock acquisition, it's more about the ability to get lefties and righties out than just necessarily match up left on left. We've seen throughout the league, we've seen teams successful with one and at times even zero left-handed relievers in their pen because of the effectiveness of their righties against opposite-handed hitters. I suspect we're still putting on the final touches on the roster. I suspect we'll break with at least two lefties as part of our pen. Obviously, Aaron and very likely at least one of the kids to start. There's going to be, look, every team in baseball is going to have a lot of pitching moves over the course of the summer, we suspect. So there's always, understandably, a lot of focus on who are the 28 in this instance breaking with you on opening day. In reality, we look at it as sort of a much larger universe than the 13 to 15 pitchers that we break with on opening day, and instead know that there's going to be some combination of 20 some odd pitchers who over the course of the summer are going to contribute, and we feel pretty good as we sit here today about the depth and the options we have.
And you're able to avoid arbitration with Lucas?
Yeah, how about that? It's almost like when I told you don't worry about it so much that I knew a little something. Any event, yeah, we were able to avoid arbitration with Lucas, which is great. Had good, honest conversations face-to-face with Lucas. Jeremy Haber as well did, and frankly, and perhaps most interestingly, so did Jerry Reinsdorf. He and Lucas met one-on-one and had a nice conversation about how negotiations sometimes get a little bogged down, and tried to search for solutions out of it. And we're obviously happy that we were able to, and have everyone's focus properly on the season ahead, and not worried about preparing for some sort of in-season hearing.
The Vaughn news, as Tony said yesterday, was better than.
Yeah,
he's
progressing.
Pretty well.
He's progressing nicely. Now, again, I think the biggest enemy, so to speak, for Andrew right now is probably time,
right,
in terms of the amount of time we have left to get ready for the season and make sure, not only first and foremost that he's physically in the best condition he can be, but also from a timing standpoint that he's in the best position to, face big league pitchers. So that's really what we're dealing with here more now, in terms of confirming that he's physically full go, and then dealing with the timing issue and whatever amount of time we have left here in Arizona before we have to set the roster.
The mantra this spring has been pretty much every year covered one more move. Maybe there's only one more move to make. Do you feel like you're in pretty good shape right now if there is no more move? Not one more move.
If really making Michigan look bad. There's always one more move to make. There's always one more move to make. We are having a lot of conversations, but quite frankly, the focus of Tony and the coaches and the players is appropriately on the guys in that room. And if in the end our opening day 28 come from that group that's currently here on campus, that works for us, and we're excited to get going.
Back to Pollock, he seems to fit a lot of your other moves you've made this offseason, veteran, playoff experience. What do you like about him and his fit with this team?
Other than all the things I said earlier, we do the playoff experience, the having obviously been to the promised land and performed well on the biggest stage, we think is a positive. Very positive clubhouse presence, not dissimilar from a guy like Josh Harrison or Joe Kelly, Kendall Graveman, all veterans who have been through the wars and succeeded on the biggest stage, which we think fits in nicely with a young team, a team with a lot of young core players that are continuing to grow through, ideally, all the way through October.
Collins sent out. What does this mean for him?
It means he's going to play regularly in Charlotte instead of being on the bench in Chicago to start the year. Again, we had 4 different guys catch games for us last year, including Yerm's inning or 2. We're going to need depth at that position, and we still view Zach as having upside and a guy who could potentially help us over the course of the summer. At this point, we think everyone's better served by him playing regularly down in Charlotte instead of a few times a week here in Chicago.
Typically, there's always one more move to make, but a lot of times when you open spring, you talk about how the offseason kind of passed and you're focused on the guys in camp. Have you reached that point at all, or is it still kind of
No, this whole, obviously for understandable reasons, this whole offseason's been a little jacked up. And, the abbreviated spring, the lack of contact with the players for several months over the course of the offseason has sort of led to this spring training being a little messed up too, in terms of what we're rhythm and what we're used to doing. The offseason for me, or in my opinion, ends opening day. And then obviously there's probably going to be fewer transactions over the early part of the season, and before you know it, the opportunity to improve ourselves in June and July will present itself. But from my standpoint, or the mentality of everyone in the front office, the off-season's still going at this point.
Did you kind of, when you were looking out for possible outfield additions, were you just thinking in terms of someone who handles right-handed pitching? Obviously that tends to lean towards lefties a lot,
right.
But was it just that goal of guys who could face righties and do damage?
That's part of it, but the flexibility, the defense, the clubhouse presence, those are all considerations. Obviously there's economic sides to these things too, and we really like what AJ brings in all of those categories.
I mean, this is the lesson of last year kind of being, you don't really have to worry about Andrew Vaughn being blocked or Kevin Sheets being blocked, because those opportunities obviously come up over the course of the season.
Yeah, those opportunities are going to come up over the course of the season. And again, if we have, for the first time in a few years ahead of us, a full slate, like we know that's what we're going to be dealing with. They're not going to have 7-inning doubleheaders. We're not going to have a shortened schedule, knock on wood. And we know getting guys adequate rest and recovery is going to be important to us reaching our ultimate goals at the end of the season and ideally through the fall. So again, having the depth and the quality options anywhere we can on the roster, we think is going to serve us well.